So you bring up on your show about, you know, the white knight savior complex, and that's a possible reason for why people like on TYT and on the Majority Report failed to cover people like Tulsi Gabbard, who was presenting. If you were to just look at policies, she had the best policies. So
it wasn't even close.
For people who don't know what the white knight savior complex is, could you explain what that is? Because this is an important term that more people need to be aware of.
So the white savior complex, or white knighthood, is
you coined it, right?
So not the white savior complex, but I'm pretty sure I came up with white knight. I've never heard anybody else say it until I came up with it. And it did stem from the concept of the white savior complex, but the white knighthood, I actually came up specifically for progressivism because these people really feel like they're coming in on this damn white horse with their shining armor, ready to save the world. I'm going to destroy this whole army of racism and oppression by myself. But I need you to pat me on the back and remember, you know, I need my 40 acres after this is done. I need all my praise. I need to be have love thrown on me by the oppressed. But just know also, I'm not going to give anybody else credit whenever the time comes. If one of those oppressed people were one of my generals, you're never going to know about it. But white knighthood basically is the concept that there are certain figures that have figured out that being on the quote-unquote right side of history, at least rhetorically, grants you a certain amount of privilege that is very hard to discern. If you are not, it's very cryptic the way that privilege works in that particular case. But you've seen it over and over again, and you probably don't even know. For example, there is no world in which Nina Turner should not have 10, like hell, more subscribers than AOC. How in a movement, especially this election, almost everybody credits Bernie's success directly to Nina. Why is it that AOC gets all the retweets and all the love and all the support? And some people would say, well, no, it's different because she's Puerto Rican, right? Not necessarily, people, because she, I want to say code switches, but like she was raised in a white apparatus, and she is able to kind of assimilate. She has assimilated. And if you knew her history, you understand what I mean. But let's look at somebody like David Sirota even. David Sirota oftentimes came to the defense of AOC and vice versa. Came to the defense of Elizabeth Warren, ? Never, if at all, came to the defense of Nina. Nina, being a black woman unapologetically, experiences and all, has never been ashamed of that. Yeah, she gets a lot of retweets. Yeah, you might think, well, she had like 300, 400,000 subscribers. What's the problem? Nina was literally the engine of Bernie Sanders' campaign to the point where even Chris Wallace, the one that got fired for saying that stupid sexual harassment, saying the comments about Bernie attracting Nazis or something like that. Like, this dude was like, you're my favorite surrogate ever. You're the best surrogate that. Chris Wallace is saying this about Nina. And yet, she is not treated as such in the eyes of the populace. Why? Because, and she even knows, a lot of her validation came because she was behind the white man. She also knows this. If she did what Tulsi Gabbard did, she would have been treated worse than Tulsi Gabbard. Because the biggest problem that people had with Tulsi was, how dare you have the audacity to run in the same race as Bernie Sanders? How dare you? And hell, how dare you have the audacity to be better than him on the issues? How dare you introduce a policy that takes a lot of the problems with Bernie's Medicare for All that he introduced in the Senate and introduce something better? How dare you be brave enough to go on independent media when Bernie would not do such a thing? How dare you expose my bias, my inherent racial bias, my inherent sexism? How dare you? That is how people felt. And people, and even Nina, in one of our conversations offline, expressed, I'm not stupid. I know exactly what they would have did to me if I would have tried to run in the same election as Bernie Sanders. Why? Because we have been conditioned to, it's the same old adage, right? Black people in general have to do twice the work to get half the credit. So it does not change in politics. Nina Turner was credited with being the engine behind Bernie Sanders' campaign. But AOC got a lot of the credit for just a single endorsement when she had nothing to do but gain from it. Nothing. She was never going to lose any support for endorsing Bernie. Everybody expected it for years because of the Justice Democrats. But Nina joined when it wasn't the popular thing to do. Nina joined whenever she knew the entire Congressional Black Caucus would slaughter her because they adhere to the white establishment and the patriarchy to keep their titles and their money flowing in. Nina lost her Senate seat in Ohio to campaign for Bernie. Nina got blocked from introducing Bernie Sanders at the Democratic Convention in 2016, specifically because they did not want anyone to know how Black people truly felt about the policy Bernie Sanders was introducing back then. And unfortunately, most of the things that she went through went in silence, and everybody was talking about her being VP. Why? Not because they knew what policy she supported, but because of who she was backing. And the same reason that people would ever, at the time, Nina has become much more well-versed on foreign policy since. But at the time, if you were looking for a VP, then it would be unquestionably Tulsi Gabbard if you understood what her policies were, how much better she was on foreign policy than Bernie, and what that office requires. VP, basically, over the last 2 terms, they've been delegated all the foreign policy shit while the president just chills in the crib. But they were more infatuated with the white saviorism of Bernie than they actually were with Nina, and they loved Nina because of who she backed, not necessarily because of what she stood for.
Yeah, so unfortunately, YouTube, like people who listen to you and other people who have the same message as you, people on Twitter, unfortunately, that stuff doesn't reflect how informed people are outside of that bubble. So how can we inform more people about things like the problems with our election integrity, things like the white knight savior complex and the unconscious racial bias that people have? What can we do to inform more people?
Well, so for me, I've been trying to, kind of put the onus on myself because, from what I can tell, as far as networks are concerned, I'm the only Black owner of a broadcast network that has any type of influence in leftist politics. And so we've done our best to branch out to other platforms, help other platforms build up where we can finally start having the influence over those messages. Because if anybody knows about our network, we only have 2 white guys. Everybody else is either Black or a person of color. Like, that's it. One of our writers isn't even really in front of the camera like that. So we expand the conversation in a way where people like our organization like YouTube can't control it, and those who have kind of created this level of toxicity within YouTube can't control it. And so the way you can do that is by making sure that the journalists of color get credit for what they do. I've seen my journalists get their credit taken from them and regularly. Fiorella is literally responsible for Bernie winning Iowa. People have no idea what she did while she was there. We were literally able to, she found out by going on the ground and doing her investigative journalism, there were 12 precincts with no precinct captains in a lot of large counties in Iowa. And there would have been, we saw rigging even with the precinct captains. Imagine if those precinct captains weren't there and had access to that Bernie Sanders app to report on the corruption that they saw. That was Fiorella. Fiorella and Johnny have been walked all over, had their work taken from them. Hell, and this is where Johnny and Fiorella got arrested 2 weeks ago. And if those jails were not filled in California and LA specifically at that time, they would still be in jail today. Johnny was kept longer because he and Fiorella are indigenous Peruvian. And Johnny looks the part, if you catch my drift. And guess what they did the next day? They were at another protest because this is more personal to them than these people who pontificate from behind their desk about experiences they've never had to deal with, because they feel they will only give platforms to the Black people and the people of color who told their narrative, but they will never bring on somebody who has all the experiences that come as a consequence to a lack of awareness from the root causes of the problems that we see in our system. Because we know, and not only do we know, but if we come on and we expose just truly how apathetic people have been, then you will be held to a different standard. Mm-hmm. And you don't want that. I mean, if you want to see what it looks like to not be taken seriously as a black man, go look at any of my debates. I debated Dr. Ben Burgess, who was he's literally a professor of argumentation and logic at Rutgers. The man looked like, it felt like he went to Twitter to get a bunch of talking points because he thought that was going to be enough. He thought that I was something to be played with, and not to pat myself on the back, except for in this case, I am going to pat myself on the back. When it comes to debate, I am not to be fucked with. I went through hell. I put in work in high school to the point where I spent every damn Saturday of my high school career, except for in the summer where I was at some debate camps, putting in work because I couldn't even speak the goddamn language that was being discussed at these debates. But I knew how important it was, and that's how I rose to the point where I would pretend like I had a legal pad in front of me, like I was going to read from it, and just put it behind my back just to fuck with people because I already had all the points memorized. And granted, Ben doesn't know all that about my life, but if that was Kyle Kalinske, I bet he would have taken it more seriously. I bet Michael Brooks wouldn't be dodging me if I was a Kyle Kalinske, if I was even a Charlie Kirk, if I was Michael Brooks bitched on Twitter at me, complained about one of my talking points. I remember that. And then the moment that somebody was like, then go on the show and debate him, Michael, and it was one of his fans. He was like, oh, this is boring me.
Yeah.
That is a racist dog whistle. Why? Because that black man is not worth my time as a white man. And I know that in white saviorism, I can get away with dodging debates and no one will ever take it as a slight against my intelligence because of who it's against. But back in the day, imagine if Stephen Douglas ran away from Abraham Lincoln. The only reason we even got the Lincoln-Douglas debate is because at that point, which is rightfully so, if you avoided a challenge for a debate, then you were looked at as a punk ass who had no right to be trying to influence the opinion of anybody. Because you could not stand by your own principles. And it should still be considered true for the day, but white saviors, white knights, white progressives neo-progressives specifically, I should say, have figured, racism is still actually more rampant within the progressive movement than people are willing to admit because they want to feel. Because I can pat myself on the back, put out some milquetoast tweet, some good things are good, bad things are bad, and that will get 3, 4, 5 times as many tweets as a black woman saying the same thing. We've been told them about Biden. We've been talking about police brutality. This isn't new.
Yeah.
But now everybody wants to come out with some goddamn catchy tweet like that gets them a bunch of tweets. They're not gonna get up off their seat. They're not gonna get up off their desk. They're not gonna do what Fiorella is doing. They're not gonna use their privilege in the same way that Pasta does. I can't tell you how many times I had to call Pasta over. Hey, Pasta, come here real quick. We gotta handle something. Because I need him there as a white man to make sure things don't go south because of my appearance. Fiorella has to do the same thing and Johnny has to do the same thing. We literally call him over just to stand there. Or we'll have him talk and say what we want to say to see him be taken more seriously in real time. Like me and Fiorella and Johnny laugh about it all the time, but it's a fact. It's what we have to do.
Yeah, and it's great that platforms like YouTube, I know that it's starting to suppress a lot of video, like channels like yours and like mine, but at least it's getting the message across to at least some people. Now with Rockfin, there's another place where people can get their news from. Hopefully that grows and overtakes YouTube. But we need to have more conversations like this with as many people as we can.
But I want to say how important that is that you just made that point, because on Rockfin, while we have Jimmy Dore on there, Kim Iverson on there, Mike Cernovich on there, a plethora of other people from Ron Pacone, Graham Elwood, left and right. Guess what? My show is the number one most watched political show on there. Convo Couch is the most streamed political show. So whenever the opportunity has been given, the show ran by people of color, dominate. Mm-hmm. And we were the ones that secured exclusive deals with Rockfin before anyone else did. Because when we had that fair opportunity, that's what we brought to them. We brought value, not only monetary, but within that conversation that we have as well. That's what can happen when you actually give a fair opportunity to people of color.
And then for the viewers out there, tell as many people as you can about the injustices that YouTube does, the injustices that Google and Wikipedia do. There's articles out there. You know, I made a video the other day about Wikipedia and how they were censoring the Gray Zone and Minpress News, even though they never had to retract an article ever.
They're on point, both of them. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, it's important for all of us, and tell your family, even if you're like in a grocery store and if the conversation just happens to come up, tell them like a truth that you feel is necessary for them to hear. And, you know, more collaborations like what we're doing are also important, because there's commentators out there that have their set of fans. If we come onto their show and tell them stuff that they yet don't understand, they start to understand more since they see where you're coming from. And then their viewers start to see where you're coming from. And they're like, oh, okay, I can see why they have these beliefs. So I encourage more collaboration. I encourage more networking, more discussions outside. Go to as many rallies as you can and tell people, you know, keep fighting even if you get rid of Trump, because there's many people out there that believe that just getting rid of Trump is enough. It's not enough. And as far as I know...
Keep getting rid of everybody. If you keep getting them, I bet they'll start to get the message when nobody is good enough.
Like I had somebody.
You get people who run to keep the office. You want to get people who run because they actually care about the issues, because they had no intention on maintaining that office to begin with.
And I'm gonna say something that somebody at one of these rallies said about, you know, police brutality, and when you have these conversations with people, is you have to get comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations. I was posting a lot of stuff like on my Facebook before, like long before I ever like started being more active or making videos. I was posting stuff on my Facebook where my family members and friends are, who were just like, oh, I don't understand how we have Trump, blah, blah, blah. They were like, Hillary should have won. I was nonstop sharing information that I learned from, you know, channels like yours, Niko, and channels like Jimmy Dores. And like, there's no difference between a Republican and a Democrat as long as they receive money from the same institutions that really control this country. And 3 years later, I received a message from a friend from college who was like, first of all, I want to thank you so much, because I thought that I was doing enough by just voting Democrat. But you've shown me that, you know, there's no difference, Republican or Democrat. So you never know how many people's minds you're gonna pull out of the matrix. The more you have, the more you get comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations. Thanks for watching that segment of Hear Me Out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below so you can get the latest on sports, pop culture, and progressive politics. Stay informed.